I guess probably the first thing to mention about this month is just my general hormone situation. It's complicated to say the least. So, when I started going back on this regimen, I went back on spirolactone, which is what I'd been on for quite a few years at this point. When I first went back, I went with the manufacturer that I had for most of that time, and everything felt like it was starting to fall back into place. I started to feel like a woman again. However, the next batch was made by a different manufacturer, which interestingly enough, this is the manufacturer that kind of triggered this whole hormonal issue in the first place. And yeah, now it's starting to feel like my T levels are going up again. Thankfully, it's not as bad as it was when I wasn't on this regimen, but it's just such a tease because I felt like everything was going perfectly fine, and then this comes along and says, nope, you're not there yet. I gotta tell you, it gets more and more tempting with each passing week to just remove the source of this poison from my body. But I digress. Towards the first few days of this month, I had a therapist appointment. And the major theme of that appointment was change. And it's interesting when I think back because I feel like I, as a person, haven't changed that much. I mean, I still like my action movies. I still like certain breeds of anime, board games, video games, and even a little bit of antiquing here and there, but generally that's all remained the same. But, well, I've physically changed, and thank goodness for that, because whenever I see old photos of myself, I'm reminded why I hated looking at myself in the mirror. I was absolutely disgusting. Now, I could be like sick, my hair could just be all over the place, got like big bags under my eyes and whatnot. I can more often than not look in that mirror and still go, you look pretty good. I guess that kind of leads into another big change I've run into is I'm a lot more open now, as you could probably tell from these update videos. I would have never had the courage to be able to talk about my personal life like this if it wasn't for transitioning. And I should thank you as an audience for being very receptive to it. It was very encouraging, as well as with the friends, as well as the family I've met along the way. I'm a lot braver. I'm a lot more open about myself. But there are definitely a few things that have not changed. Which, I'd say that's a little bit of a good thing, but that could also be because I'm growing up. It's like, well, when people go through puberty the first time, they're no longer kids anymore. They're becoming adults. And I guess in a bizarre way, I'm becoming more of an adult now because now I'm going through third puberty at this point. All these up and down hormone levels are just very annoying. I just wish the estrogen would just take over already, but it seems like that testosterone keeps wanting to rear its ugly head again. I guess I could take solace in the fact I'm not the only one. Or at least I'm guessing this really isn't something I've heard a lot of other trans people have dealt with, is their body fighting back. I mean, I've definitely heard a lot of cases where they were physically sickened by taking the HRT, like it would raise their blood pressure to an obscene amount, or it would raise some other level to which it was just unhealthy to do so. But yeah, I haven't really heard of any other people transitioning where their hormones just won't stay active. And I guess maybe that leads into another point. This was actually a few days ago. It was just another video that was in my recommendations, and I just remember there was a lot of comments basically saying like, yeah, after my 6-month mark, I was more often than not gendered correctly. It's been a little over 3 years, And more often than not, people still refer to me as Sir. I'm very bitter about it, as you can tell. But to kind of bring it back a little bit, if this was a bit of a tangent, I don't know, it just kind of feels like I'm rambling a little bit here. But another big thing that happened this month is that this new clinic I'm going for bottom surgery, they gave me 3 back-to-back appointments in September. It's a little bit of an inconvenience, and well, it's very annoying because they've been offering me different days for these appointments, but in August. For me, summertime is very much the busy season, and I would just feel very guilty taking time off during this time of the very busy year. It would be nice if I could have just had it all on one day and then got it over with. But here is probably the most important thing to mention about those back-to-back appointments. So, as I mentioned with this last clinic I was going to, before I could even meet with the surgeon, I would need to get a letter of recommendation from a psychologist and a therapist, I believe. Basically the one that has to be the doctor that can prescribe medication if need be, and the one that's more on the clinical end. I hope that makes sense. I always get the term psychiatrist and psychologist mixed up, but basically a letter from both of those to tell them that yes, you're not doing this because you lost a bet, because you've been hypnotized, and that you're, of course, of sound mind and sound body before doing this. I was very relieved to hear that this was something that the clinic was able to offer up. So I didn't have to go hunting down for another psychologist again, because that was quite an ordeal when I had to do it the last time. And the other big thing about those letters is, depending on the clinic, they're only good for like 6 months. I guess after that point, they think you had a relapse and needed another psych eval. I guess it's not so much my place to question the rules as it is to just play the game. If I want to win, I gotta play by the rules here. One of the appointments is a bit more of a standard affair, basically a consultation of what this kind of surgery would involve, which I know at this point, but I guess they gotta do this to keep it on the books. And the other one was more of a hormone panel, which I do sincerely hope that things will level out by then, otherwise that's going to be quite a big obstacle I'm going to have to overcome. Last month, I talked a little bit about is it pronounced erasure or is it eraser? I always said erasure offhand, but maybe it's like subtle in the idea that it's pronounced subtle, as if the whole B and D thing wasn't confusing enough. This time you use a B to sound like a D. But anyway, last month I was talking a bit about the erasure of bi people when it came to pride events. And this month, I think I should probably talk a little bit about the whole femboy community. Now, obviously, this is something I don't have much knowledge about. But there is kind of this idea of erasing femboys because it's a claim that that's a stepping stone to just becoming a trans woman. Well, it's very difficult for me to understand because honestly it was really about the body wearing the clothes that may be uncomfortable, but there are just people that like to look feminine but still have a masculine body. I think, like I say, I don't really have much of an authority when it comes to the idea of the whole femboy community, so you can feel free to educate me on that. But it is a very interesting point to bring up. There is a bit of an erasure going on. In fact, there has been a few points in media where people were just like, oh man, this is going to be another trans character, and then it's revealed they're just a femboy. And there's a lot of people that are either disturbed by this, or they just put in their headcanon that this was something the producers weren't gonna let through, so they just made him a femboy because that's more culturally acceptable than being trans. Personally, though, it's a little hard to put a lot of stock in it because, well, I don't want to be confused for a femboy. I just want to be considered a woman. Not a manly woman, a womanly woman. Another thing I want to mention this month is I got a book recommendation, not only from a good friend, but also just for all of you. Super late bloomer. And, yeah, it's kind of funny that her name is also Julia. There was also a sequel that came out a little while later, so basically what these two books are, it's a series of comics. Very similar to the style that I like, where it's something that looks like it could have come out of a newspaper. Black and white drawings, no color. And also the idea that everything is drawn in a panel structure. Personally, I rather like the original myself, as I'm very much a person that keeps looking to the future. I have a very hard time living in the present, or, well, there are times where I very much want to forget the past. But when I hear about people's beginning in their trans journey, it kind of puts me back into that mindset. The idea of how nerve-wracking, how even exciting things were when there was just so much progress ahead of me that it was very impatient, but also I was very excited for it. I've kind of gotten to a point where, as you could probably tell with these videos, it's more like emotional or psychological changes, because in terms of physical changes, it feels like things have just kind of stalled. And I'm not sure if that's just because I'm done feminizing, or if it's because my battle is fighting some sort of chemical warfare. But I don't want to necessarily discount the sequel either, which takes place about 3 years into Julia's personal journey. And there were a few things that I found very similar here as well. Although I was really more interested in the transition, and a good chunk of this story is about her trying to get over a very intense breakup. Not something I can relate to as of yet, but maybe someday I'll be able to find the courage to date, and hopefully I can find somebody that just sees me as a woman rather than a cause. There's one last thing I wanted to talk about in this video as well. This is a bit of an inspiration from another trans YouTuber I saw. It was a list. I'm not sure if this is something that everybody that transitions goes through, but I went for a very analytical approach when it came to if I wanted to transition or not. And so I wrote a list of reasons why I want to, reasons why I don't want to, as well as just basic pros and cons. Well, I still have that list here for me. This piece of paper is like, it's at least 4 years old. In fact, the paper itself is probably even older. So, I'm gonna go over the reasons. It's double-sided. One of them was kind of like a compare and contrast, and the other was just like, I'll try to summarize as well as I can. So, this first side I have here is reasons for staying as a man. The idea of dating. Felt like it would be awkward for me being a lesbian or developing a taste in men. Thankfully, that is not something I've worried about too much. I mean, there have been a few times where I've had, I guess I shall call it straight panic, and actually that's another thing to mention. So this month I found another hot-looking man. I'm not sure if anybody has ever heard of this animated movie called Fire and Ice, but the villain as well as his wife, I can't tell which is hotter. If you ever want to look them up, just do like a quick Google search. They should be able to come up for you right away. And it is a bit of a coincidence that her name is Juliana. And there was the idea of experiencing sex as a man. that was a very popular thing. It was just kind of like, oh, you just haven't found the right woman yet to make you feel like a man. Or if you did this, you might feel mannish enough. Or, hey, you're not really a real man until after you've had sex. Independence. Obviously, there was a lot of misogyny there. Less fear of being taken advantage of. Well, honestly, man, woman, I'm too kind for my own good. People just take advantage of me anyway. The ability to pee standing up. I forfeited that a while ago. I'm understood as a man in society, friends, and family. Hmm. Well, for a few people in my life, unfortunately, that is still the case. What I am giving up to be a woman, loss or weakness, connection with friends or family, that got crossed off the list pretty quickly, actually. Being able to have children. I don't even know why I put that on there. I didn't really want children before, and I especially don't want children now. Even if science was advanced enough for me to carry a child. Oh, no, no. To me, the pregnancy just sounds like the very famous scene from Alien with the chest burster. You just have some sort of alien being growing in you for like 9 months, and then you have to figure out how to get it out of it. Oh, I don't know why people want that. Finding women to date. Well, it wasn't happening regardless. Being able to go topless. I will admit that is something that I do kind of miss, but at the same time, just having an athletic bra on, fantastic. And on top of that, I find women's fashion can be very skimpy. I can wear like next to nothing now, and I don't have to be worried about being called gay. And I feel like that kind of makes up for the ability to go shirtless. And once again, that's a little weird because the only time I ever really went shirtless was when I would go swimming. It just felt like part of the swimsuit, but everywhere else, I did not feel comfortable taking off my shirt. Going to the men's room. Yeah, that one is a little iffy. I mean, basically, I use the women's room for the most part, just not at work because too many people just see me as a man, and I want both parties to be comfortable. Less independence. And I like the idea that I put periods here. This is one of those things, like people tell me being on HRT for a while, it basically simulates having a period, but outside of this, well, period of like 2 months where I would just get insanely emotional for like the last week of both of those months, I haven't really noticed much that would be period related. But then again, maybe my hormones just haven't been regulated enough to have a period. Like maybe if I was able to just have a constant level of estrogen in my system, perhaps then I would start having periods. But at least I don't have to worry about bleeding through my uterus, because I don't have one. Although it is fun to note that I have talked to a lot of girlfriends, friends that are girls, not people that are dating, and just about all of them have offered me their uterus. Yeah, it kind of feels like I've cheated in the idea that I could be a woman and don't have to deal with periods or pregnancy. I know there are some trans women where that's kind of a sticking point, that they're sad they're not able to experience either thing, while here I'm just like, it's a perk. And then here I have the idea of going out at night. I think that was just me listening to too much of No Doubt. They won't let me go out at night. In all honesty, it seems like whenever I'm going out at night anyway, I'm usually with people, so I don't really feel afraid. Plus, I don't live in a major city, so I'm not really afraid so much about that kind of stuff. People tell me I should be, but I'm not. Maybe I should just skip down to this other section. So, reasons for being a woman. Yeah. The first one is just basically boobs. Yeah. They're great. Experience what it's like to be able to wear gender affirming clothing. Yeah, that is pretty nice. But even the best part about that is it's my clothes. I own it. And even when I wear it, I also own it. The idea of being able to see what pleasure is like as a woman, I'm kind of censoring this because even I feel a little ugh just by reading it, but I do want you to get the general idea of where my mind was at the time. Yep, I already said that. How it feels like to be in a female swimming suit. I specifically wrote bikini here, but I do not have the confidence for that. And let me just kind of say that right now, but why do all the women's swimsuits have to end in a V? It's just kind of like, here, you have the correct genitalia. Is there such a thing as, like, I don't know, a swim skirt, swim shorts for women? I mean, why do all of them have to have that arrow just pointing directly to your genitalia, basically saying, yep, you're correct. No, you are not. And then people talk about the idea of tucking, but without getting too much into detail, that is just not possible for me. Especially since I have a hernia mesh blocking up one of the areas. V-neck that shows more than hair. I want a cleavage. And I still don't have it. It's kind of a combination of not being very big, but also I seem to be very far apart. Cleavage seems to happen when you, like, get them a little closer to each other. Which a lot of people talk about the idea of scotch tape for that, but with the way things have been hormonally, they're just way too sensitive to be able to just ply them around like that. Experience long flowing hair. Yeah. That is nice. I just find myself often playing with it every so often. It's fun. In fact, it just kind of annoys me to think I've could have at least done this part before even transitioning, but I did have to deal with my mother basically harassing me every time I didn't have my hair perfect, so she probably would have had a lot more to talk about if I grew my hair out. Being able to have a body that I don't mind looking at. That's mostly the case. It's just kind of annoying how often I have to shave sometimes. And everywhere. Experienced shaved legs. Wow, I didn't even know I wanted that at that point, but I will admit that smoothness, beautiful, just chef's kiss. Less body hair, yep, that was definitely a big one. In fact, even before I decided to transition, it was like my pituitary gland was just in the back going like, oh, we still got some extra testosterone to pump into the system here, let's throw it in now. And then just that last year before I started transitioning, I started getting chest hair. And that was definitely one of the final nails of the coffin. And that's the reasons for being a woman. From there was just kind of a pros and cons list. So the idea of pros of being a man. So experience, shave only my face, don't have to worry about makeup. I still kind of don't, but I wonder if I should. Sometimes I honestly wonder if maybe more makeup would make it so more people would see me as a woman rather than just a very weird looking man. Going shirtless, don't really care about that. Baggy clothes. This is kind of baggy. But women can wear baggy. I don't know where that was coming from. Find to be gross. I'm gonna guess that meant more like the idea of like if you let out a loud belch, there aren't gonna be people like, oh, how unladylike, how uncivilized, or if you stink because you've been sweating all over, it's just like, oh, you must have gotten a good workout for a woman. It's like, ugh, put on some perfume or something. At least I'm gonna guess that's what that means, because that would definitely give some great insight to me, because honestly I felt very gross before transitioning, and it was the idea I was like wallowing in it. Independence. Misogyny again. The pros being a woman. Boobs. Enjoying curves. Yeah, that's nice. Experience what it's like to have proper genitalia. Someday, I hope. New pleasures. Not going too much into detail, yes. Clothes that make me feel sexy. Yeah, I'd feel like there's no way to feel sexy wearing men's clothes. Or at least, maybe that's just me. I mean, some people talk about like a tank top being sexy for men, but for me, it just felt like I was exposed. You could just see all this gross body hair everywhere. And it's like, oh, I never felt sexy in men's clothes. Women's clothes, I feel not only sexy, but I feel pretty. Flowing hair, already mentioned that. Being able to wear a bikini. Gotta wait to install the front door first. Gain new perspectives. Oh yes, I've definitely have. Ability to wear skimpy clothing. Yes, I mentioned that part already. Look and feel sexy daily. Honestly, I can't remember a time I ever really felt all that sexy before transitioning. Felt good when I wore a suit, but I wouldn't say I felt sexy wearing it. Can be overly emotional. Yeah, that was definitely a big plus. Even now, it's still very nice. I honestly can't tell if it's because of the hormones that are allowing me to feel these emotions, or if I just don't have to worry so much about the societal pressure to be just a stone wall that just has to keep a smile on his face, regardless of how many stones are thrown at him. With women, it's almost anticipated that you're supposed to be overly emotional, to be able to cry at simple things, and it's freeing. The cons of being a man. Being misogynist. Yeah, I guess my views haven't really changed so much on that. Basically, if you're a man these days, people don't really care about you. It's just like, oh, you're strong. You can deal with anything. I mentioned this last video. I don't have to delve again into it this time. Society constraint. Yep, I can very much agree with that. Bad smelling. Yes. I hated body odor as a man. Body odor as a woman just isn't nearly as bad. Let's see. Cons of being a woman. New. Yeah, I don't know what it was like. Shaving in many places. Well, I'd rather put up with the shaving than all that body hair piling up. Makeup and lipstick. And didn't really have to deal so much with that. I mean, wear it on occasion. But I will admit, that is very intimidating. Exposing too much skin. Yeah, I feel like I can't really do that the way I am right now. Periods, already mentioned. Back pain. I was kind of hoping to have a little more here. Being hit on. I think a lot of people probably call it catcalling at this point. Honestly, I kind of want to be, because it would just be more gender affirming. However, it would be nice if I could be hit on by people that are under 60. The two people that have hit on me were definitely old enough to be my dad. P sitting down. Like I said, I kind of resigned that one years ago. I'll just kind of skip over that one for the sake of ratings. Expensive clothes. Yep, that is very annoying actually. Women's clothes, men's clothes, there's just a giant distinction between the two, and how in the world do you wear half as much as a woman, but yet they charge twice as much as a man? And on top of that, there's no pockets. Give me pockets! Overpowering emotions. Once again, there was definitely a fair bit of misogyny there. And honestly, it doesn't feel so much like it's overpowering. It just feels more like they're available. I just shut myself off in the world. I didn't really feel anything other than just there. Now I can feel emotions, which is a double-edged sword, because if I'm happy, I feel joy. If I'm sad, well, if I'm really sad, I start to cry, which is a little embarrassing to do that in front of other people. Sensitivity to temperature. That's only something now I've started to run into. It's almost like I'm kind of going through female puberty where I'll be in the air conditioning. It's kind of cold. I want to put on a sweatshirt. I'll go outside in the heat. And I feel like I just want to drop dead because it's so muggy out there. I can't stand it. But at least on the bright side, there's a little bit of leeway. Like, if I put myself in the freezer and then put myself in the intense heat, it's going to be a little bit for my body to be able to realize that, oh, it's very uncomfortable right now. Sensitivity to skin. This is a crazy thing. I've had sensitive skin all my life. It's honestly gotten much better since I've had estrogen in my system. The only times I ever really had acne or bad rashes is when my T levels started getting off balance. Although I seem to be breaking out in hives these last few days, so I'm gonna blame the testosterone on that one. Society constraints. I've kind of worked within that at this point. I mean, I guess maybe I don't really care so much because I always saw transitioning as the idea of just becoming more yourself. And the idea of having to adhere to these made-up rules feels like you're just kind of fighting against that. Getting used to new body. I'm not really sure why that was so much of a concern, because I just remember that first week I was on HRT, I'm just like, yes, let's do it! And that's very much been what the experience was for most of that first year. Well, when the Spiro didn't make it feel like I was having a stroke, but other than that, I was just very it was exciting. I could just feel the changes. It was a detox, really. I was detoxing from testosterone. I was just getting all that filthy, disgusting hormone out of my system and replacing it with this nice new clean stuff. Just wish it'd be more consistent. And I'll kind of skip that one as well for the ratings. But let's just say that's something I'll have to worry about when I get into bottom surgery. So, this video turned out a lot longer than I expected. I think I shall end it here. As per usual, if there's anything else you would like to talk that is not politics, feel free to leave a comment down below. And until next time, be yourself, no matter who that is.